I'm Crystal.
And I'm Ray. Welcome to the Rey and Crystal show.
We're your new astrology classmates, releasing a transit forecast every other Saturday.
As a casual astrology podcast, we're here to learn together through candid discussion.
You'll hear our interpretation of what's going on based on what we know and are still learning.
Join us to amp up your understanding of what's happening
as we figure it out together. Hello, everyone. It's Crystal and Ray. How are you doing this week, Ray?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good too. Yes, it is a rare time for the planets to all be direct, and people are kind of losing their shit though.
Yeah, it feels like there was like a lot of opportunities, a lot of options presented in January, like especially the early and mid. And then now it's like we have all these options and we're trying to figure out how to do what to do with them. And it's just Jupiter's bringing a lot of abundance. There's a lot, yeah. Jupiter and Mars and Mercury right now, I feel like are super, super relevant.
Definitely. And I also feel like the Venus and Pisces entering for some reason, like after that, everyone just got like freaked out, fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
The illusions literally be like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it was like a lot of nice things and a lot of water related accidents specifically. My dogs have peed in the house more the week that Venus went into Pisces than they have all the last, year.
It's a strong transit. Like, yeah,
is.
the exaltation, bro. But
It's making
yeah.
those girls gotta piss.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like otherwise I've been going through a lot of like kind of turmoil. I think I mentioned last week with like thinking about my career and like how I want to be seen. I think it was also because like I turned 28 no, not even last week, 2 weeks ago now. And like my fifth house profection year began. And I'm just like reevaluating like all these like themes related to how do I want to show up in the world? How do I achieve respect? It's so crazy how like I feel like after my fourth house year, I really healed my relationship with my mom, my home. And that was very clear because I just visited. But like now it's like a new level, new devil, you know? So we will see that. That was, I think, the biggest takeaway because like, yeah, we had a bunch of healing conversations that like has like there's never been so much change in such a short time. And I like cried for the first time leaving like my like home for like ever. I think like in 10 years. Like I maybe ever actually, because I've just never been like homesick for my parents since I was like maybe a small child, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I've been feeling very homesick as well, even though I don't speak with my parents. It feels like I remember I was talking to a friend a few weeks ago, and I was like, I was like, I just want to talk to my mom. Like, if whenever I get really upset, there's something about a mother and the presence of a mother, and I don't know, the power that they have. And what they said back to me was, it's always hard to move away from your mom. Like, it's always hard to separate from them, whether that's temporarily for, okay, I visited, now I'm not visiting, or on a bigger scale, like maybe I have, where you're literally separating, you're not in relationship. So it's tough to move away from your mom, as they say.
And we're
Always,
like, yeah. And then literally like, yeah, it's true. No, I literally said, I miss my mommy. And I was like, what the
No, literally, I said, even the fact that I was like, I want to talk to my mom, I was like, pissed at. I need to unpack.
like help, what's wrong with me? What a devil has gotten on my nerves. But yeah, so want to talk about this upcoming week's transits that are significant? Well, there are a bunch, but or I can talk about them too, actually.
Yeah, I guess, do you think it would be more beneficial to talk about our themes and then the transits afterwards, or?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. We both wrote different themes, which is kind of exciting because then we can meet and see how they relate.
We can say maybe your themes first and then my themes.
Yeah, mine are pretty simple. I've got two, well, I've got three total, but two are kind of in the same boat. Um, one of them is just the abundance of Jupiter,
Oh
just very
God,
simply.
I'm sick of the abundance of Jupiter. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, like especially with so many planets going direct. I think we had, I don't know if everyone is direct right now or just most of
I
those
think
guys.
everyone is until March.
Oh wow, did Uranus just went direct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it feels like there's the planets are kind of markers of time and timing and seasons, and some of those seasons I think we have more control than others and more influence than others. Some seasons we're just along for the ride, and some it's up to us to, sail the boat.
Hmm.
And this one, it feels like we were just in a season of just along for the ride. We were just,
Hmm.
things were retrograde. We were planning, figuring things out, doing our best. We were just doing our best. And now Aquarius season has started. Things are going direct. It's time to, I don't know, there's a lot of Uranian energy, a lot of Aquarian energy. And even though I don't work a lot with Uranus, it's loud recently. It's very loud.
It has been. I feel like there's like a lot of innovation in the air. And
Mm,
yeah, like big theme that I wanted to talk about was kind of like how to have self-care in like the face of
mm,
like societal influence, which has been a huge theme, I think, among my friends too. It's a very Aquarius theme, but also with like the fact that we have a full moon coming up in Leo. I'm a Leo moon. And my Mercury's in Aquarius. So like, yay, lunar return and also Mercury return. But I've just been thinking a lot about like how do you like maintain your individuality and how do you not like attach to that or like
mm.
detach too much to it to where you're attached to the societal view and stuff. So yeah. And yeah, I also wanted to talk about like, yeah, like in the face of the fact that the planets are all going direct and Jupiter has like, like traditional benevolent good associations. I want to like talk about like self-care as discipline, like kind of like if
Mm.
you want to be deeply okay with yourself, what are you going to be deeply not okay? But not in the self-deprecating sense, but in a like fatherly disciplinarian sense, because Saturn still
Yeah.
rules Aquarius, and we are still in a Saturnian season to some
Yeah.
degree.
I want to unpack that too, because I just had a lot of thoughts on discipline the other day, and I think it's very fitting. Because I think the word discipline is kind of scary to a lot of people. It has some kind of implication in the same way that like Saturn or Mars could have an implication. And I think discipline, especially like on a societal view, it tends to be a very negative consequence of something that happened. Like it tends to be a negative consequence rather than what discipline actually is, which I was thinking about, especially in the context of disciplining children, because people often conflate discipline with punishment. And
Mm.
punishment
Mhm.
often doesn't teach you anything like it doesn't teach you anything helpful, at least. It teaches you things that are kind of maladaptive and not beneficial for adulthood. Um,
Mhm.
And so just thinking about discipline not as a way to punish yourself, but as a way to cultivate on your own as an adult, not someone disciplining you or discipline coming from the outside, but it coming from the inside of, I want to do this and I'm going to cultivate this practice over time rather than I'm going to punish myself when it doesn't work out, which is not discipline, it's punishment.
Yeah. Do you have a specific preference on which kind of transits we talk about then first? Because I kind of want to actually like talk about the discipline theme that's kind of like which transit kind of inspired that one. And then we can talk about all of them. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Are you thinking about the Ceres transit I noted or a different one?
I'm actually, yeah, I am thinking about that one. I'm thinking about like Aquarius in the sense of like, sorry, I like have like a cold. This is like so annoying. I think actually Aquarius is related to perhaps why discipline was suddenly, in my mind.
Mm,
And when I was thinking about self-care, I was like, discipline, it was, well, yeah, it was specifically because of Ceres and like what you wrote. But I also think that Aquarius is actually deeply connected to discipline in a way because it's like the sign that's related to society. And I feel like discipline tends to be sort of actually a reaction to society. Like we what like people like to be disciplined to be like productive, but I think trying to be productive to a certain degree is also like your ideas of it are influenced by like society. So to me,
mm,
I feel like anything that's Saturnian obviously is discipline, but because like there's like that modern Uranus association with Aquarius, we forget that like, like it makes me think that to be in a community properly, you need to be disciplined to some degree, aka have like a sense of self for what standards you want to have for yourself that aren't like also toxic, right? It's like the fluid
yeah.
sort of parenting. It's not just like you have to do this or X consequence will happen. When we like think about discipline in the context of consequences only, it doesn't actually happen then for us or work. Like we can't
Mm.
actually become like what we want.
It doesn't motivate us at all. If
Mm-hmm.
our reason for discipline is to avoid a negative consequence, it often is not enough to actually encourage us to do that thing. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about, because I think if I remember correctly, the Aquarius and it being a societal thing is
Mm-hmm.
partially, or at least partially a modern interpretation with the 11th
Mm-hmm.
house. But it really makes me curious about just Aquarius as like the water bearer and like the water carrier, and how
Mm-hmm.
that is like it's a role that one person is doing, or maybe a few people. I don't know. I don't live in a water carrying place. Um,
Wait, what's a water carrying place? Are we talking about
I
like a different country? Oh God,
I
we
don't
have.
know, places where they carry water, where you would find a water carrier.
Okay, I can think of China. Oh my God, I really hope that someone doesn't find this someday and go like, ha, they're dumb, they're
I
American. I'm like, yes.
that's why I phrased it the way I did, is vague on purpose,
I,
because
I'm just like, I'm just feeling the camaraderie with you of like, yeah, I too do not know actually. Hmm. It could
and
have,
the water carrying places, yeah,
yes,
I'm
I'm like,
just thinking
yeah. No,
like,
okay. For the longest time, and this isn't just me, everyone I know accidentally thinks Aquarius is a water sign. And I'm like,
hmm,
which Aquarius have you met that seems like a water sign? Like in my head before I answer, right?
it's the
Um,
aqua.
I know it's like the aqua part. I'm like, no, do not be misled by brethren. But yeah, in the context of like Mercury entering Aquarius on February 11th, which is like the tail end of like the little segment we're doing like in time. I actually think of my own Mercury and how I had a terrible relationship to discipline as a kid because my parents were like both Virgo conjunct Mercury. And they were like, discipline must be blah 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 this way. They would just like kind of needle stab me to death about like how I did stuff. And I was like, ow. Now when I grow up, I find that the more creative you get about like discipline and how you think
Mhm.
about your intentions and how you want to honor them, people actually really respond to them. Like I have friends who became like more inspired to use like Notion, this one organizing tool that like they were previously also scared of, like me. But then I learned to just be like funky with it, to almost like you discipline as like an art, but not like a haha, like I'm so serious. I'm like calligraphying art, more like a ha, like this is so funky. What if I just like tried to do this, like kind of like dance while I do my chores, or like like send my emails with like a weird little like pigtails on, or just like making it funky, like to
Mhm.
make like the disciplining itself like fun, not thinking about the result, thinking of like how can I take pleasure with this process. Like if I think about my possessions as like animated and real, then like maybe I'll also want to like put them back more, which happened. So I think of in that sense, if we continue to like give discipline the name of like stodginess or like obligatory, then like people aren't going to like do it. Like they just don't want to, because like
Mhm.
I feel like if you like, when you're a kid and you like teach your kid to like have fun doing things in the realm of discipline, and you don't think of it as punishment, then like the kids actually respond to it better. And I think that's like kind of how still we are as people. Like we want to like have a good time all the time. and we like feel bad about that, but it's like, well, if it's not enjoyable, why the fuck would you do it? So like to me it's
Yeah.
like Aquarius is about making stuff fun that would not seem fun, just to like get a shock value, but to also like get stuff done for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And it's also extremely fifth house, by the way, because you're talking about the process of creation, the process of doing something rather than the outcome of it. And that's the fifth house.
Ooh.
It's yeah, it's kids, but that's only because they ultimately go back into the fourth house. That's why it's sex. It's the process of it. It's the process of
Yes,
not
exactly.
yeah, you're not
Yeah.
doing it just
Uh-huh.
for a kid only. It's also because it's fun, it's enjoyable. It's
Oh my God, wait. I just
yeah.
thought of like the most weird analogy that people are gonna be like, what? But like, okay, discipline and sex are like similar in that like if we take sex like kind of almost too seriously, it like honestly like makes bad shit happen, I think. Same with like
Mhm.
discipline. But like you know how when sex is like playful, it like it
Yeah.
doesn't even matter whether or not there was the orgasm, so to speak. It's just
Mhm.
or like the proper way to do it. It's more like the flow of the energy. So like people have sex in different ways, right? You can't actually
Mhm.
like categorize it that well, like how people respond, right? And each person like you have sex with is also like a different experience if it's a good one. If it's like the bad ones probably all feel similar, I think. But I was like, discipline is also kind of like if you define it more by how playful it can get, it feels better and it feels maybe even like good, so to speak, right? Because like when sex is playful and feels like good, or it could be like so bad, like like sex could like honestly like make someone like traumatized, right? If it's not like
Mhm.
done in this proper way. And that's why I'm thinking like, oh my God, wait, what if discipline is like similar to this? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole, rabbit
Well,
hole.
this is extremely Venus and Pisces, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Ace's posts about Venus and Pisces and about being horny and about arousal and um yeah, it's very fitting, I
Yeah,
think.
because if I talk about like I'm aroused, being aroused while I'm doing chores, by doing the chore itself, people would be like, I do not relate to that. But I'm like, but what if that's like the key here, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone's always like self-care, man. I'm like, well, like, what if the self-care arouses you, and then the work arouses you, and you're just always aroused, and like arousal doesn't stop. We stop tying arousal to sex. We start tying arousal to just like existing, and work is a
Mhm.
form of existing.
Yeah, is arousal about, I'm curious about the definition to see if it's inherently sexual or if it's inherently about pleasure. Okay, the act of arousing or being aroused, that's not a helpful definition. Evoke or awaken a feeling, emotion, or response. That is to arouse. So yeah, that is not inherently sexual. Often it is, but yeah, to just invoke an emotion, that's being aroused. That's
Mhm.
such an interesting concept to think about.
And I'm like, when you're horny, maybe you should actually, the whole, if you're horny workouts, like if you're horny, clean your room and see what happens.
I can't say on camera what would happen if I tried to.
Well, that's a good sign. No, because I've actually never thought of it, right? Like people, I think like the idea of like this is very controversial, but it's like, oh, when you're
Mhm.
aroused, you should masturbate. I'm like, what if you're not supposed to masturbate? What if you're supposed to like have that as one of the options, but you could do something else? Because really it's about aliveness. And maybe you feel like, no, I swear to God, when I think about like really good writing, sometimes I feel like aroused. And then when I write and I publish it, I like feel like I'm done,
There's a
basically.
release. Well, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense about thinking about Mars and the concept of passion, not just sex or arousal in a sexual context, but just passionate. Something that's motivating, that's encouraging, that's invoking emotions that makes us want to continue to do it to the point that we finish what we're doing. We finish our project, we finish whatever works at the chore, whatever we're excited about. Because it was exciting, because it was invoking feelings. And yeah, it's just a very different way to view things, I think.
I think that, yeah, viewing things in a new and innovative way is like what my Mercury and Aquarius loves doing. But like, I need to like, I'm always like, what can I think about that's possibly different? And then I'm like, oh no, I have to say this thing, I think, discipline. like your discipline should be horny. No, I don't want to say that. But then someone's like, I guess I see what you're saying, but holy fuck. But like, okay, like literally, like, oh my god, wait. I just saw also how like with sex and like the BDSM thing where like people get like
Hmm.
punished by getting spanked, it's also like discipline and punishment are really intertwined. So like by that logic, then discipline and horniness should also be intertwined.
Yeah, there's a lot of I was also thought about earlier about how um BDSM, like, just kind of like how the whole there's like one, a community as a whole, and two, it's all based on, it's a very disciplined
Mhm.
community, I guess I'll use that word again.
Yes, they're
um
internally disciplined too.
yeah, they're
And
all
that's
about all of that. They've practiced, they have rules, they have things established in
yeah,
order
because
to
otherwise
respect
it can
each
get
other. And
dangerous. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's so interesting. Yeah. Like they have such a weird sort of reverence for sex in a way that I haven't seen from like, like traditional sort of no, not communities. We don't have
Like a
really sex.
Puritan.
I was gonna say the traditional sex communities, and I'm like, no, we don't really have those. Just traditional sex people that don't community about it.
Yes.
You can't have a BDSM person that's like, also a prude. But when I think about prude, it's also like you can't have one that's like averse to communicating about like the sex itself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what? Oh, I'm shy, but I'm also really into like being handcuffed. Like, haha. Like, even when
Yeah.
they're talking about it, they'll be like owning very boldly what that means. But yeah, okay. So this went onto like a whole tangent. But I think what's also I'll
Hmm.
just like try to tie this back to the transits, and you can see which ones are happening below. Um, but yeah, like full moon in Leo and the Ceres station retrograde while opposing Jupiter. Think about how like like the sun is like very luminous, like Jupiter is very like benefic. But I'm also like, yo, guys, like let's not get too pilled on the idea that like, oh, and the planets are going direct. But it's like these seem like traditionally like positive like associations, right? But I was also thinking about how like if you get too much abundance, you can get like overwhelmed. It fries your
Hmm.
nervous system, and then you just like scream and like dissolve into a little pile of goo. And this is where I think discipline can actually save you because like
Hmm.
if you already have like a kink, so to speak, around setting limits for yourself to honor what you already have, right? Then like I think like that's how I learned to not be like overwhelmed, to be like very open to the idea of not doing things when I choose to do things. And to be very open to the idea of like saying no, even to like opportunities. Like the New York Times wants me to write a piece for them, but if I literally don't feel like it, if I ask myself beyond the like, oh my God, it's New York Times, like then I can just feel the freedom to be like, nah, I'm good. Because like discipline isn't just clean your room every day. It's also like know like yourself enough to also say no even when some part of you is like egoically sad about it,
Hmm.
right? I've been learning that that is the approach I have to take with like my writing, because I've been kind of like not externally really probably but internally chasing status. I've been like envying like all these like more popular people who like make more money off Substack than me, and the discipline is to like look at that and remind myself that it's like an illusion and that I don't actually care about that stuff, but I forget that I care about it. But yeah, thinking of it as like a radical act of love is like really good. But I think
Hmm.
also just like thinking it's pleasurable to like say no and it's hot in some way to like resist that. I think that that is actually also important, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the only way you can like actually keep track of your abundance, to like view like discipline as like a good thing. Like, oh, father, daddy Saturn is actually the good guy of the story and stuff.
Yeah. I keep going back to the image of the, like, the water bearer, the water carrier. Um, and I keep thinking of it in the sense of, I'm going to be kind of mixing a few different schools of thought here. Like, I preach is wrong, or not helpful to do. Or yeah, we're gonna have nuance with it, so we'll know what we're doing. But I'm thinking about like just water in that situation as symbolic of, yeah, emotions, but also like logic. Um, and just the flexibility that it has there, kind of like like I think it's in Basing that it's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about how the person that has all of that is the person that has a lot of wisdom and a lot of flexibility with that
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. And they also are choosing who to like literally pour it out and where to distribute it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels
Yeah.
very Saturnian and Jupiterian in the sense that like there's always more water. It's never an issue of running out. But if you don't distribute what you have in a certain way, you might have to take an extra trip back and get more water wherever that well or river, where, well of knowledge. We'll use a well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And
yeah.
like water's also, I think, like psychic sensitivity and everything. And I think that like when we honor like what water means to us and what we're bearing, right? Like our
Mhm.
emotions, our sensitivity, then like it also just works out better. Um, yeah, Aquarius is like you have to be detached in order to bear the water. You can't be like in the water swimming in it, you know. You have to be kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
like like chill, right? That's why I'm like, of course, Aquarius is an air sign because a water person can't bear the water because it's too similar, right? They would just like, yeah. I just feel like,
Mhm.
yeah, fire. Like if you are fire, you don't bear fire, right? That's why I'm
Mhm.
like, that's a good way to remember that like Aquarius is actually not a water sign, even has the word aqua in it, because yeah, people literally still think it's like a water sign. And I'm like, I used to also be one of those people before I got into astrology. And then I think, yeah, like thinking of it as water bearers aren't water signs. That's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. I yeah, it also makes me think of tarot, how once I understood to a certain extent of learning like, yeah, there's the Suite of Wands and Pentacles and the four different suites, but how like swords, for example, each sword also represents something. Like the sword itself could be an
Mhm.
idea or a thought or some kind of knowledge. And just how much more depth that gives viewing things is give when we have a symbol and then we give meaning to it additionally. That feels like a
Mhm.
very roundabout way to say a very obvious thing.
Mhm.
But
No, that makes
it's
sense.
yeah, we're about creating the whole process of astrology, and all of this is to create meaning. And so all the different ways to do that I think are helpful. And yeah, one of my other notes that was attached to the abundance of Jupiter was just lots of options and too many to do all at once.
Yeah, as a Jupiter stellium, I'm just like, can someone please like stop? I want Jupiter to like slow the fuck down. Like I literally have like whiplash constantly. And ever since I moved to New York, like I was like driving in Portland the other day and like I was driving for like maybe 40 minutes and like my brain was so full of like ideas. It was like popping in and I realized that I'd acquired the habit of like if I was sitting on the train, I would just like take some time to write down my ideas, or I'm on my computer, I'm just walk on the street with my phone. But I'm like, dude, if I'm like unable to like write anything down for like an hour, I'm just like, what? Like this didn't used to happen. I was in LA. I used to be able to like take road trips and speak, like, yeah, whatever. But now I'm like, oh no, there's an essay that's forming my brain. If I don't write it down, then like I'll forget it. Oh no, I can't pull over right now. I'm stuck in traffic. Like it's like, oh. So
Mhm.
like, yeah. And I'm just like, Jupiter, can you please stop? Because like I've healed a lot more of my trauma since moving to New York. But now it's like new level, new devil. Like, oh, like I'm obsessing over my status as a writer. As soon as I healed that, there's even more ideas. And I'm like, I don't have time for all of these. Oh my God. Like,
Mhm.
how do I stop? And so I've
Yeah.
been dealing with this problem. And people are like, wow, what a good problem to have. I wish I never had writer's block. And I'm like, yeah, but the problem is that it's like interfering with my ability to literally be alive. Like if I don't eat, don't sleep, don't drink because I want to
Mhm.
do it. Yeah, like it's like it's so hard. Which is why I'm like discipline. Woohoo. Yeah. Thank God,
Yeah.
because otherwise I would waste away.
Yeah. I love that the subconscious movement that you did was ASL for stop.
Oh, is that really what it is?
Yeah, like stop that.
I don't
Um
think anyone's ever taught me that.
yeah, and
Like,
I was just thinking about the concept of not stopping but of limiting things.
oh, how do you
And
limit? How do you limit?
I'm thinking of Jupiter and the concept like Jupiter is just like a big ball
Mhm.
and it having like a waterfall under it. It's just this deluge
That's
of
right,
ideas and
guys. Jupiter
opportunities.
Jupiter rules Pisces. So anyone that says Jupiter doesn't have watery connotations is wrong.
very wrong. And it's interesting. It's almost like it's also a sun at the same time with how warm it is. It's a whole thing, a whole rabbit trail we
Wasn't
don't
there
need to
that thing
go
about how like Jupiter can like outshine the sun or something?
down. It actually produces more heat than it receives from the sun.
Yes, that's what I heard. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm a Leo moon. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like this
It's
time's yeah,
well, I was thinking of the waterfall thing. And with it being like a waterfall, it feels like there's all those opportunities, hopes, dreams, whatever. But when you're getting all of them like that at once, like a waterfall, it's just going to destroy anything under it. And
mhm.
so the goal is to kind of
Because
like
water can be like,
limit it.
isn't water technically a type of fuel? Like it can like power stuff.
Yeah, water I think is neat because it could be very destructive and also it can give and take life.
Yeah,
Like,
people forget that like floods and like I don't know, monsoons and stuff can like do some serious damage.
and so it's I feel like that kind of energy where we have to limit how much water is coming down if we're going to build anything under it or near it because it'll just it'll destroy it. And so I just keep having this mental image of like these dividers limiting it. So instead of this big deluge, it's just a little stream that
Yeah,
is
like
manageable and you can use. And yeah, but it comes from
yeah.
saying no and from blocking off those opportunities, as counterproductive as that sounds.
Damn, yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. What does Ceres represent again? Because you know a lot
Um,
more about asteroids, because we have on here that February 3rd is Ceres stations retrograde while opposing Jupiter. I'm like, I know what Jupiter is, obviously, but I'm
yeah,
forgetting Ceres? It's not Juno. Is
Ceres
that
is
like
Demeter, which is like
oh
the goddess of like the harvest. Is Persephone's mom.
oh
Yeah, so it's all
yeah.
about
Oh my
nurturing
god, that's
and
crazy.
harvesting and yeah.
She stations retrograde while opposing Jupiter, and they're both about abundance.
Yeah.
Abundance
It's
isn't what you think it is a theme here.
yeah, not too much, you don't want too big of a field to work with. You only want enough crops for what your needs, a little bit for storage. Like you don't want so much that you're going to have a field that you have to just let things die and go to waste, because that's what happens when you have too much abundance, is things die and go to waste because you didn't have the resources to utilize it.
Oh my
um
god, yeah. Wait, I love that. When you have too much abundance, things go to waste. Like, duh. But I think people are always like, oh, the sovereignty of our society and culture, Aquarius themes again. Because, okay, so I saw this tweet about how this guy was like, I know I don't want any more technological advances. I think we've had enough. Like, when's enough enough? And like,
mhm,
like I was triggered at first because I think he like forgot that like running water and like electricity are like I don't know, and like people not dying during childbirth because of technology are like
mhm,
also technological advances. And then I was thinking about how, wait, but okay, if I were to give him credit, which I did not want to, but I will do so for the sake of the podcast, what credit would I be giving him? And I was thinking, oh, like when we innovate too fast as a society, we get whiplash and we lose sight of the big picture, right? Like how social media has made us feel more disconnected than ever. And even though we can
mhm,
like do something like, oh, if I'm having a medical emergency, I can like Google it or something. It's also like the abundance of possibilities of like
mhm,
WebMD can also give you anxiety and make you have like, worse health
yeah,
from that, right? There's like trade-offs for everything. So like abundance is not always good, is I think
mhm,
a huge theme of like why people are disillusioned with our society, because we are like richer, even the poor people are richer than they've ever been. People aren't dying of like random disease anymore. I don't know, less people are getting killed, even though we know about more of them because there's preventative sort of like care. Like you can call a police man on 911 instead of like running to like a landline, because like
mhm.
damn, the 80s would have been scary. I was like, oh, you'd have to like wait to hear from people. You can't just like call them on your phone. Like that's scary.
Well,
Right.
yeah, it keeps making me think of oh my god, I had such a good thought and I lost my mind.
It will
Continue.
come back. You're a
Yeah,
Virgo.
no, continue.
Yeah, but like abundance is sometimes bad for your nervous system. Like if you're just like constantly overwhelmed, that's like
Mhm.
also not good, right? I've been like
Yeah.
thinking about that because I'm like, I have so many friends to keep track of that I can never actually like enjoy. Like I'm in SF for a week and there's not enough time to see everyone, and I'm just like, I mean, that's like nice and all that, like, I guess I'm popular or something, but like also like Jesus Christ, I like want to come here to enjoy it and live very slowly. And I'm like literally trying to cram like a hangout or two every day. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like meeting like 30 people on Sunday, like at this hangout. I like was like, hey, everyone, come hang out. Oh, wow, there's like 30 of you RSVPing. I don't know about this.
Yeah. See, it
Not
was
good.
nice when you visited because I didn't feel like we needed to entertain each other. We had a lot of nice hanging out time and also a lot of alone time and also a lot of alone time together.
Yeah, and I mean, were we really alone because there were other animals among us? They were
True.
so cute though. But like, yeah, they also were down to do their own thing, like very good at giving space. I'm like, good guys. But no, also I was like, it's nice to go to Ohio because I don't like have to see anyone else here. And same with like when I went home, I barely saw anyone. But in these other big cities, I'm like, I kind of want to just enjoy the city too, but like I feel guilty if I don't say hi to like some of my friends, but I don't, it's not like full, like it's like a
Yeah.
coffee for 2 hours, and I'm just like, that's not enough time.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, no. I mean, people are like, wow, complaining about a first world problem, Crystal. Too many friends. I wish I had friends. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? Like, it's not always good. Same with
No.
like Leo moon. So last thing before we like sign off here is like basically with the Leo moon, like for me at least as Leo moon, I feel like I've been obsessed with the idea of significance and obsessed with like what that means. And I think whenever we think about like the moon being ruled by another luminary, the sun, it's just almost like frying me. It's like I'm being burned from the inside out. I have to like vomit out like my essence. I have to like be here. I have to be like in the world as a Leo moon. Like I have to be seen. But like I don't even like, it's like I want to be seen, but not even necessarily like people talk to me. It's more like, oh hey, there's Crystal. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm like, okay, like nice Substack. I want like to be a source of light for people.
Yeah.
I think if I had certainty in that, I would stop obsessing over my Substack following, which is like already like I get like 300 views per post, which is like a lot of views, right? But then I'm thinking about the more people with more views. Now I'm like, do I actually want people to like pay attention to me? Because I can't like talk shit on like random people with passive aggressive fictional posts. To be like, oh, this is about so and so, isn't it? It's like, wait, no, actually, yeah. Also, like same with like even like the show. I'm like, I don't want like a million people critiquing us or anything. I want people to just like listen to it and like enjoy it just because it's us.
That's true. Yeah, I would much rather have a moderate amount of people that would like to be here than a large amount with a moderate amount of people that don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are running out of time today. We could read all the transits, like all of them, but I think it might be, if we're just like listing them, it might not be super helpful since we're posting them anyways.
I think people here are here for the interpretations and like the themes of the week, so to speak, anyways. So yeah.
Yeah, and so February 3rd, that's when Ceres is going retrograde. That's talking about self-care, abundance of opportunities. February 5th, full moon in Leo. February 11th, Mercury is entering Aquarius. I know we said we're only doing to the 10th, but it's a notable, it's notable. So other things are happening, of course. We will post those in the description so you can see them.
Yeah. All right, cool. But yeah, it was nice talking this time. And yeah, this will definitely spawn many more themes because self-care in the context of discipline is super important. And also just yeah, planets going direct, guys. If weird things are happening in your life, just don't be gaslit. It's okay.
Yeah, it's the time for weird. We're transitioning. Give it another week or two, and then you'll be like, okay, things are normal crazy again.
Definitely. All right. Okay. Well, we'll sign off now. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today, guys.
As always, any transits we didn't cover will be posted in the show description along with more info about how you can work with us.
Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.